I'll kick this off. For anybody I haven't met, I think I met most people here, everybody here actually. My name's Charlie Goodman, and this evening I'm going to give a talk about the VA, but in particular about getting a disability percentage, either getting it or increasing it. I'm Navy, and actually we got a small group here, so I'd love to know what branches of service you guys are. Can I start over here?
Army.
Army? And when did you serve? When did you serve?
2011 to 14.
Nice.
Navy 91 to 11.
Nice. Active? Very cool. Going medical port. How many years have you been in? 6? Okay. This will be good for you.
22 years active duty Navy
And Navy Reserve. Okay.
14 to 14.
Uh-huh. I got 6.
You got me.
Yeah.
Navy 2010 to 12.
2012?
United States Army 1986 to 1992.
Yeah. Nice.
Coast Guard, I got it in 2015.
Still active duty. Very cool.
Army 03 to 07.
Right on. So I've been 18 years. I joined on April Fool's Day, 2008. It was a wonderful day. For any of the Navy guys, that also happens to be the Chief's birthday. You know, those are one of the best yellers groups of yellers around. So that was super awesome. My first day of boot camp, and then I commissioned, and I've always been with the West Coast SEAL teams. Been on a bunch of deployments, and I got a bunch of DD-214s, which means that I've actually gotten out of the military many times, and I've picked up some things. So I'm going to share some of those things with you, but really focusing again on the deployments. On the disability ratings that you could potentially get, or if you have some, how can you expand that? Nobody said they were part of the Air Force or Space Force here, so I don't have to talk about paper cuts this presentation, so that's good. We could shorten that up a little bit. So as I mentioned, talk about benefits as a whole, just give you a snapshot and some websites, but we're really going to focus in on the compensation part. That's literally the tax-free money that you can get for your service. So this is a good starting point, and if anybody would like this PDF, I'll send it because I have some links in here. If you're a nerd like myself, or you just want to have a few documents that you can Control F, search the document for certain keywords, the VA puts out these really large, many-page PDFs that you can get at this website here, and that's in case you just felt like, hey, what other benefits could I get? And you just want to read through it and get some ideas. I do have a better tip for that later in this presentation, but certainly you can start there and just have it on hand. It's like the manual. So this graphic hasn't changed. The VA still puts this out, but it's basically saying that they cover a lot of things. A disabled veteran, which is any veteran with a 0% or higher, there's actually 0% ratings, can access benefits through the VA. I was talking with somebody. Who was I talking to today? And they said they went to the VA and they're like, the VA doesn't even see that they exist. Who said that? Okay. So you just need to register with the VA, and you can probably get yourself a 0% for nothing. But now you exist to the VA, and the higher ratings that you get, the more benefits you can tap into. But one thing in particular, if you have a 0% or higher, so basically you've registered with VA, you have access to that sweet home loan. That home loan is a strong interest rate. It's backed by the VA, and what that means is you don't have to pay that upfront. What is it, Ryan? 10 or 20%? 10 is it? Down payment. Yeah. Okay, so you don't have to pay that with a VA loan. And also, if you don't pay it, because the VA is backing you, you don't have to pay, what is it called, PMI, is it? No PMI. So that means you're not spending money just on mortgage insurance while you're getting that loan, which means you're paying less per month. So that's pretty sweet. VA loan is pretty awesome. If you have 100%, you can actually get a reduction on the property tax that you pay. So there's benefits right at the entry level all the way up to the top. But the VA does pay a lot in disability compensation, and that's what I'm going to focus on here tonight. Okay, these are updated for 2026. So if you are a veteran and you have one child, you have 30%, you're going to get $596 a month. That's going to be tax-free. If you're at 100% in the bottom right hand of the column with one child, spouse, and a parent, you'll be getting almost $4,500 a month. So there's huge, huge benefits that are accessible to you. I will say that, and this is very confusing, is as you get more things rated, it's not a linear thing. It's more like a curve. It takes a lot more disability ratings to get into the 100%. So that's very confusing for many people. We can talk about that separately if you want. But that's why it pays so much at the right end of the scale there. Okay, so filing for compensation. That means that you have an injury as a result of your service, and now you're going to tell the VA about it, and the VA is going to say, okay, depending on that injury that we assess you for, we're going to give you some of that compensation per month that I just showed. These are some of the most common ones that the VA rates for, which equals these are some of the easiest for you to get because the VA has basically done it tons of times. They've acknowledged it tons of times. Getting the VA to acknowledge injuries is a big part of that battle. So I bring this up there because if you're at the beginning of your claim and you're wondering, what could I claim for myself? If you have something that's on here or related to it, you have a very high likelihood of the VA rating you for it. So that's good news. But these are also start points because a lot of these primary conditions can lead to secondary conditions like tinnitus, which is the #1 rated condition. I looked at the stats today just to freshen myself up, and there's millions of veterans who are rated with tinnitus, the ringing in your ears. But that primary condition, what if now I notice I get migraines? Well, if you knew that there was a connection there, which there is, you could potentially make that connection through a doctor, a physician giving you a recommendation and saying the migraines you're getting are probably caused, at least as likely as not, caused by the tinnitus that you have. And now the VA is going to rate you for tinnitus 10%, and depending on the severity of your migraines, you might get a 10, a 30, or even a 50 if it's debilitating. So knowing the common disabilities and then how they are linked is very useful. But you don't have to keep that in your head. What I learned in this past year was that ChatGPT, Google Gemini, your AI assistants can help you. And that's going to focus a lot on that, which is what I didn't. I was doing this a lot manually last year, and this is what I briefed. But I found, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm really excited about how I've helped a couple of people and they've pretty much done it themselves. Like David has had a lot of good stuff done with AI assistants recently. But this is the basic formula. Okay, so you go to the VA and you say, oh man, I hurt my back serving, and the VA says, and the VA denies you. And you wonder why. You obviously have an injured back. I mean, it's pretty clear. Well, the VA is huge, very bureaucratic, and as such, they go through a very, not simple, but they have a black and white process that they go through. There's a lot of ways to get denied, but there's certainly a black and white way to get accepted, and that's for any condition that you're applying for, you need the diagnosis, which means a licensed physician has said, yep, that person has tinnitus. Well, tinnitus is super easy because they can't actually tell. You just have to report it to a physician. They write it on a piece of paper. Now you have your diagnosis. Or back injury or whatever it is. Some other things obviously can be clearly, but they can measure. Then you need service connection. What does that mean? It means you need to prove, or at least as likely as not, prove that that injury had to do with your service. So Obviously, if you were in at a certain time and you had the injury, then it's at least likely as not to have happened in your service. But even for reservists, if you're in training exercises or workups or even drill weekend, you have a service connection if you simply can prove that. And there's a number of ways to prove it as well that I'll get into just a little bit, but that AI can help with. And finally, severity. So if you go to the doctor, and a lot of veterans disqualify themselves in the severity case when they're sitting in front of the VA doctor, and the VA doctor says, and you tell them, "Oh man, I got a herniated disc or whatever it is, my back problem." VA doctor is going to say, "Okay, go ahead and touch your toes and see how far you can get." Service member, we're used to be like, "Okay, cool, I'm going to do my best, whatever it is," and they go and kind of stretch, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that kind of hurts," and you want to do your best no matter what it is. VA doctor is like, "Okay, well, this person appears to have a full range of motion. No matter what came out of your mouth, you just proved you invalidated your own claim." Alternatively, if you remember that you need to show that VA doctor how severe the injury is, and you're like, "Okay, you know what?" And you think back to, and you remember last week and how you were working in the yard, and that back injury, man, that stopped you from even mowing the lawn. You need to understand that that's what you need to present to the VA doctor. So when they ask you to bend, you bend to where you normally get pain. You may be having a great day and the pain's not showing, but you know that I normally try to do some work and I can't. That's what I'm talking about, severity. So that's really important to present. Diagnosis, service connection, basically this injury occurred during your service, or otherwise you have proof that you were on deployment or proof that you were serving at the time that you claim the injury occurred. You might have a medical record from medical while you're in. You might have it from a civilian doctor as well. That works as well. You just have to get it connected to your time in service. And then severity, how bad it is. Migraines, they give you 3 different ratings for migraines, and that depends on how often they occur, how bad they are. Those type of things you have to articulate so the VA can put those 3 things together and give you a rating. When you're starting, you send the claim to the VA. VA acknowledges it. They ask for evidence, medical records, also letters from people that knew you during that time, also studies that you pull yourself with the assistance of AI that says, "Oh yeah, this tinnitus, there was a study done that says it was linked to migraines." Throwing things like that into your claim is what happens towards the beginning. The VA has to read everything you put in there, but many service members don't know that they can put all sorts of things in there. A letter from your wife that says, "Yeah, you snore because you have a sleep apnea claim," that serves as evidence. And there's tons of husbands that snore. In fact, I started my journey with the VA because my wife was saying, "You snore, you snore, you snore." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let me look into this." And I started going down the rabbit hole. So they're going to review it. VA is going to make a decision, and they're going to send you a letter, and now it's going to also be online. Claim complete. That's not where your journey ends, though, because if you didn't get the rating that you want, you have 2 different ways to increase that rating. One of them is an appeal. That sounds like the thing you should do, but most veterans don't realize that they should just create a supplemental claim and add on to what they've already claimed. You don't have to remember that. I'm going to give you a few sources that tell you about the secret sauce and the methods for dealing with the VA. This next slide here. Does anybody recognize what this image is? Not what it's kind of telling you. What is this image here? If you're looking at a computer screen, what would you be looking at?
I can't even see that.
Yeah, I know the writing.
Yeah.
Yes. This one I think is Google Gemini. What are the top 20 most approved conditions for VA compensation? That's where you should start. That simple. Now, Google Gemini, ChatGPT, and a few other common ones, it's that user-friendly. Put in what you want to know. Why? Because they reach out to public information. The VA publishes what those conditions are. And that list that I showed you is almost verbatim what this is. And what does that tell you? You can do research yourself. Not only research yourself, but there are videos on YouTube that tell you how to use AI to help start and build your claim. So there are people that explain to you what questions you need to make. This is Google Gemini on the right. That's ChatGPT on the left, and that's ChatGPT on the right. So there are people out there that will say this is how you use it. So you don't have to be worried about I don't even know how to use the Google Gemini, which I really haven't until this past year. I never used that stuff. There's videos to show you how to use it. And if you want to get really into the weeds, there are applications that are AI-based that will gather evidence and collect it for you, that will basically allow you to create a pseudo claim, and it's going to analyze the strengths of your claim and say, you probably need this, and add this piece of evidence. You can probably claim condition B because you claimed condition A. So it's taken this very far, and one of the reasons is the VA being so big is using AI themselves. So if you know that formula to put in, you can at least guarantee that you'll get into a human review and not rejected just up front. Because I would say maybe 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, it came out that the VA's process was rejection up front. They were receiving so many claims and not enough humans to review. They would reject you up front. But there are also a lot of fraudulent claims in there. That hasn't gotten quite as bad, but certainly if you put a claim with the VA, you've probably been rejected at least once. Now there's ways to get through the AI filters so that at least you can get to the human, which is good. Okay. So now let's say I've done the research myself, I put in a claim, didn't like what I got, and then I watched some YouTube videos, how do claims work, how do I build it, how do I create that supplemental. After you have done that, at almost no cost to yourself except your time and interest, that's when I would recommend going to a VA lawyer. So there are VA firms out there, there are lawyer firms out there that focus on disability claims. And these type of firms, if they're legit, they're not going to charge you up front. They're going to take their fee from what they win you. So be aware of that up front. If somebody's trying to get money from you from the start, if it's more than a couple $100, it's probably not a legitimate firm. Why? Because any good firm that takes your case knows they're going to win you something, and they're going to take their fee from what they win you. An example would be, let's say that you were at 10% and you put in a claim, got rejected, and you go to one of the lawyer firms and they're like, okay, I'll take your case. We're going to take our fee from what we win you, and maybe they win you and you now have a 50% rating. What will happen is the VA is going to send you a back pay check from the difference from what you would have got 10% to 50%. The lawyer firm is going to say, okay, we are going to take a portion of that back check. So you're not going to have to keep paying the lawyer firm each month or each year. They're going to take most of them, in fact, all of them that I've encountered, take a portion from that back pay check. It's important to understand that because if you just got your rejection last month and you go to a firm, they're going to stretch it out if you don't pay attention. They're not going to get you your results until 11 months down the road if you're not watching them, because they know their check's going to be bigger, because now you're going to have a check for 11 months back pay. So this is the step. Yes?
I would say no, because I haven't heard back from, I got connected recently with Outreach Legal, started the process.
Okay.
We're going to call you back, and it's been,
Did they say they would take your case?
already started it and talked to their nurse.
You already started it and talked to them? Okay. Okay, so it's going to take
30% out of the back pay once it's done.
30%. Okay, 30%. That's
When it explains why I haven't heard back from them.
could be.
Probably.
It could be, absolutely. So you haven't paid anything to them yet, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it could. Why don't you do this in your case? If you might call them and see where they're at. And if you don't get a warm and fuzzy from that very next phone call that you talk with them, then I would say, okay, hey, I'm going to put that on hold with you. Tell them you want to put that on hold and you're going to explore other options. You can call up one of these two that I have up here. Sarah Thomas, I actually worked with her, not on VA stuff directly, but I worked with her as my civilian job. She's she's a Christian herself. She is a master sergeant, retired, and she's good. And then Consult Vets, this is a friend's company. I've never used the company, but the friend that recommended to me is super solid. So I'm thinking high likelihood that this company is really good. And the dude was really smart too. And he said the person that runs this company is super smart. So that might be good. So I would go to something like, oh, I got you in a second. I would go to something like this after you have done a little work for yourself. Why? Because it doesn't cost you anything. But if you're like, I'm out of time, I just want to get this done, go right to one of these guys first. Yeah, you'll pay, but guess what? You only pay out of what they win you. You might even have your disability claim sooner. So, and since they only charge you once, any good one is only going to charge you once, it actually might be worth it to go to one of these up front. Who knows? If you're a busy guy, you don't have time.
Yeah, and my experience with that is they will not take your case unless they can guarantee that they're going to get you a higher disability rate.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, otherwise they'd be wasting their man hours, right? So they're going to look at your case and be like, okay, I'll take you. So, Casey, what I would do is call them. Again, you don't get a warm and fuzzy. You just say, hey, tell them to stop. Why? Because if you go to a firm B and firm A is still working for you, they might say, oh, hey, your bill's due, right? So you got to get in writing with them and tell them to stop your case. If you don't get a warm fuzzy from them. Okay, so this is what I would do. In the meantime, educate yourself. I went from 0 to 100% in one claim. I did that a couple years ago, but I was mentioning I'm an Intel guy. I'm a big nerd. I researched the heck out of it, and I did it primarily through YouTube. This is before I even knew that I could use AI to do stuff. I looked at YouTube videos, and I typed it into the prompt, how can I make my VA claim? And VA Claims Academy is a really good one. I know David's used it a lot. The guy here explains the formula. This law firm, Chris Holm Kilpatrick, they're really good too. So those are two of the ones that I like a lot because they'll talk about how you work a claim on the law firm, and then the guy on the left on the screen, he tells you about the VA processes so you can understand how you can make yourself a good, strong claim and how the VA makes their decisions. I did it all through YouTube myself, and that's what I would recommend to anybody that's interested in starting a claim or increasing it. Start there. There's actually good resources, and the reason is because the VA, being a public entity, publishes their results and their processes. Their manual is public knowledge. So they have to follow their own rules, and there's ways to check them. They'll decline you, but if you're aware of what you need to do, you can win your cases. The last is some links for a lot of the stuff I used, but let's see what time it is. We got a little time. Does anybody have any questions about VA starting a claim, mid-claim?
Do you have a lot of things in your medical record while you were active that helped over your claim when you got out? When you say you went from 0 to 100%,
Yeah.
was it all stuff that you built after getting out that you didn't go back to your medical record to?
Right. That's an excellent question. And the answer is I had nothing in my medical record. Nothing. My last deployment, I was kind of thinking about my strategy because I gotten out a bunch of times, because I'm a reservist by contract, but and I've been in 18 years, but until recently I had the equal amount of active duty and non-active. So I've been in and out a number of times. My last deployment, I was thinking about, you know what, I better get this VA in gear. And I started thinking about my approach. Problem was, though, I'd never really gone to medical much before. The thing I had tinnitus in my record. That's it. But I knew that I was snoring a lot. And so I thought, okay, what is that? I found out what sleep apnea meant. And then at Balboa Hospital, I went and took the sleep apnea test. By the way, if you get the opportunity, if you think you have sleep apnea, does anybody not know what sleep apnea is? So everybody knows what it is? Okay, cool. Does anybody not rated for it, but they think they should be, might be rated? Okay, then this tip is for you. I got this from an old chief, and he's like, okay, they're going to offer you the sleep apnea test to do in the lab or otherwise to take home. He said, take it home, and if you like to have some wine or some beer, go ahead and have a couple of those beforehand. It's going to relax the muscles a little bit, and so that they touch a little bit more. And then sleep on the couch, not the bed. Why? Because it's going to put your neck into a more position that is mimicking or worsening the sleep apnea, the snore effect. So he told me that, and I did that, and got my tests as I was getting out. So with those test results and then the tinnitus, that's all I had. I made a claim for a number of other conditions that I felt I had, but that I'd never been assessed for. I put the claims in, and what the VA does is it sets up doctor appointments for you. So I put in carpal tunnel. I have bunions on both feet, but those primary conditions actually, and my feet hurt a lot every night, but they led to other conditions, radiopathy and some other words that I'm not quite sure on the pronunciation, in my legs. And so knowing that I wanted to claim bunions, I started researching what conditions could be linked to. Found out the pains that I was having in my shins and the arches of my feet could be linked to that. All I needed to do was, with that information in mind, I either went to my primary care physician. If you have a good relationship, if you don't, start a good relationship with your primary care provider. Knowing that stuff in mind, I went and had the bunions x-rayed. Yep, got bunions. And then I talked about, hey, my arches hurt a lot. And they looked at them like, oh yeah, it looks like your arches are all beat up. And when I run, I get shin splints. And they're like, okay, well, and so it creates a domino effect. But if you understand how those things are linked, it's funny. When you start thinking about that, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that pain that I've had for 10 years that you've just kind of pushed to the side and forgot about because it's constantly there, it kind of helps you get that reassessed. And then you can, once you've been rated for that with the VA, you can always go into the VA and get those and anything associated with it treated for free. And then once you get definitely 100%, but maybe some higher thresholds, you can get treated for anything for free at the VA as well. So it saves you on healthcare. But yeah, but go back to your question, man. I had almost nothing in my record. So you think, oh man, I don't have it in my record. I don't have evidence. If you understand, if you get a single starting point, build from there. But it's the more you know, the better structure or claim that you can build for the VA. Cool. All right. Well, that's about it, guys. Go ahead and reach out to me or Ryan if you want a copy of this, or if you just got some questions like, hey, man, I'm in the process somewhere, I'm happy to take those too. I've walked a few people through the process, so I'm happy to do it for anybody in our military ministry here.